The day his brother said I used to be hot, my husband didn't defend me. He didn't even flinch. That's when I knew I had to leave. I can still hear his brother laugh. Dude, your wife used to be so hot. It's the kind of sentence that doesn't need volume to echo. It just rings, even over the splash of pool water and the thump of pop music and the clang of tongs flipping steak. Even over the giggles from his size 0 wife who's sipping seltzer in a bikini small enough to fit in my daughter's teddy bear. I see my husband Michael wince, but not for me, for himself, for the embarrassment of me. He doesn't say anything. And me? I wrap the towel tighter around my waist, pray no one notice the stretch marks near my hip, and murmur some excuse about Emma needing a nap. She's not tired. She's in the shallow end, giggling like the happiest 3-year-old alive. But I can't breathe, so I grab her towel and floaties and bag of goldfish crackers, and I leave. I leave without looking back, without saying goodbye, without him following me. Michael doesn't text to check if we got home safely, and that silence told me everything. Before I go on, just a quick note. Over 88% of people who hear these stories haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these stories, hit like and subscribe. It helps us reach more listeners like you. Already subscribed? Thank you so much. Now let's move on. I wasn't always invisible, or ashamed, or afraid to eat a cookie in my own kitchen. Before I had Emma, I wore sundresses and heels and lipstick that made me feel like fire. I had curves, sure, but the kind that made him stare, the kind that made other women double-check their own reflections when I walked past. Back then, he reached for me in the morning, pulled me close at night, called me his whole meal. Now I sneak granola bars in the pantry so he won't call me a snacker. Now he says things like, "Are you really still hungry? You've just been tired lately, sluggish. Have you ever thought of hiring a trainer?" He says it in a tone that's meant to sound helpful, encouraging. But I know that tone. It's the same one his mother uses. She once whispered behind me at brunch. "She used to be so pretty. I think the pregnancy just stuck to her." She said it like I wasn't even there. Like I was a couch with stains no one wants to sit on anymore. His sister is worse. She's one of those CrossFit girls who lives for lunges and legacy. Obsessed with the gym owner, some bachelor billionaire she casually name drops whenever we see her. Apparently, she's been trying to work her way into his circle. She once pinched the back of my arm and said, "This part's the hardest to lose, huh?" I laughed. I always laugh, because crying would be worse. I tell myself I'm strong. I've survived childbirth, sleepless nights, career loss, and a husband who hasn't looked at me with kindness in years. I've endured silence sharp enough to bleed, comments that smile while they cut, a house where I walk on eggshells just to avoid becoming the punchline again. And somehow, I kept going. But sometimes, in the dark, I wonder if I survived too well. If I got so good at pretending I was okay, I forgot how it feels to actually be okay. Somewhere along the way, I stopped living. And no one noticed. Not even him. Especially not him. When Michael and I first got married, I thought the way he teased me was just his sense of humor. "You sure you want seconds? You gonna wear that? You know I married you when you were hot, right?" He always laughed after. Said I was being sensitive. Said I needed to lighten up. But now, 7 years and 1 baby later, there's no laughter. Just statements. You're letting yourself go. No man wants to come home to a woman who doesn't try. I work out, I eat clean. What's your excuse? He says these things casually, like he's reading weather updates, sometimes in front of Emma, sometimes in front of his mother, always without flinching. His mother doesn't even pretend to hide her disappointment anymore. She comes over unannounced with green juice and diet books. She'll drop a box of protein shakes on the counter and say, "I saw these on sale and thought of you." Then she'll scan me from head to toe and sigh, like she doesn't know what to do with me. She once told me while I was holding Emma on my hip, "Don't use the baby as an excuse. My body snapped back after both my boys. It's just a matter of discipline." That was the same visit she called me lazy for not doing Emma's birthday balloons myself. We'd hired someone for setup. She said I was paying someone else to do my job as a mother. His sister is the cherry on top. She's not married, but she's on a mission. She's trying to land the gym's billionaire owner, Dylan something, by pretending he doesn't see through her obsession. Every time we meet, she finds a way to mention her abs, or her tight glutes. She'll grab a handful of my arm and say, "Girl, you'd be so pretty if you just lost some weight. I could help you look like me." Once she handed me a flyer for a free class at the CrossFit gym across from Emma's ballet studio. She winked and said, "It's basically for women who've let themselves go. Stop by after Emma's ballet class. They have a babysitting section." I laughed it off, because I've learned it's safer to just go along with it. Because when I do, I don't get called dramatic, or hormonal, or jealous. Then there's his brother, Jason, the one who made that joke at the pool party. He's always been the funny one, the one who drinks too much and says things just to get a rise. At Thanksgiving last year, I reached for a bread roll and he smirked. "Careful, babe, you're gonna roll out of here." Everyone laughed, even my husband. I locked myself in the guest bathroom for 20 minutes just to breathe. Jason's wife, Carrie, is a size 0 Pilates instructor who hasn't had a carb since 2016. She once asked me if I still eat white rice. Every time we go to one of their family events, I feel like I'm walking into a room where I don't speak the language. They talk about body goals, keto cleanses, and exclusive trainers. I talk about getting Emma to eat her broccoli and sleep through the night. They roll their eyes when I mention parenting. One time, Jason said, "Okay, but you chose to stay home, don't act like that's a job." It's isolating. I sit on the edge of sofas. I sip water instead of wine. I chew gum to keep from eating the snacks. I smile when I'm insulted. I apologize when I haven't done anything wrong. And Michael? He lets it happen. Sometimes I think he wants it to happen, wants me to feel ashamed. Because if I feel small enough, maybe I won't expect anything from him. Lately, he's been coming home later and later. Always work dinners or last-minute meetings. He's cold, distant. He doesn't touch me unless Emma's watching. And even then, it's performative. The last time I tried to initiate, he literally stepped back, said, "I'm just not in the mood when you've been, not taking care of yourself." I cried in the shower that night, but not loudly. I didn't want Emma to hear. She always hears. The pool party was my breaking point. I'd spent 2 weeks dreading it, telling myself to opt out, then changing my mind for Emma. I even bought a new cover-up. Black, flowing, high-waisted, the kind that hides everything. I shaved, self-tanned, even tried on old jewelry I hadn't touched since before Emma was born. When I came downstairs, he glanced up and said, "Are you really wearing that?" I said nothing, just grabbed Emma's little unicorn float and her pink towel and followed him to the car. Their backyard looked like a resort. White umbrellas, cucumber cocktails, girls in thong bikinis with gym-hardened abs. Carrie waved from her lounge chair like she was in a magazine ad. Jason was already grilling, shirtless, beer in hand. His sister was on the edge of the pool in a neon pink sports bra, doing dips like the cameras were rolling. I found the corner of the yard furthest from the crowd and laid out Emma's towel. I helped her with her sunscreen. I cheered while she splashed. I stayed wrapped in my cover-up the whole time. That's when Jason shouted it. "Dude, your wife used to be so hot." It felt like someone had pulled the air out of the whole yard. People turned. Someone actually laughed. And my husband? He didn't flinch. He looked down at his beer, then walked over to grab another. I stood, towel still wrapped, jaw clenched. "I'm taking Emma home," Carrie blinked. "Already? It's barely 2. She's tired." Emma wasn't tired. She was laughing, building a tower of foam noodles. But I couldn't stay another second. He didn't call, didn't text to check in, didn't come home until nearly midnight. When I asked where he'd been, he said, "I needed air. Don't make this about you." That night, I ate 2 slices of leftover cake while sitting on the floor of the pantry. It wasn't hunger, it was shame. I used to eat with joy. Now I eat to disappear. I hide wrappers like they're weapons. I've even flushed granola bars down the toilet just to avoid the comments. He once said, "You eat like you hate your body." But I didn't. I hated how it was seen, judged, laughed at, by him, by his family, by me. And that hate, it wasn't mine to carry. A week after the party, I took Emma to her ballet class like usual. Normally, I waited in the car, scrolled my phone, zoned out. But that day, I went inside to use the bathroom. On my way out, I passed an empty studio. Hardwood floors, big mirror, soft piano music from the classroom next door leaking through the walls. I stood in the doorway, then stepped inside. The lights were off. Only sunlight from the narrow window lit the room. For the first time in months, I looked at myself full length in a mirror. Not with disgust, not with blame, just looked. I touched my waist, my hips, my thighs, all the parts that had carried me through birth, motherhood, and heartbreak. And then I did something strange. I swayed, barely moving, just side to side. Then I started to move my arms, let my body follow the piano's rhythm. It wasn't graceful or impressive, but it was real. I moved until I felt heat in my skin, breath in my chest. And when I stopped, tears ran down my face. Quiet, steady, cleansing. The next week, I did it again, and again after that. Every Tuesday and Thursday while Emma danced, I went into that empty studio, closed the door, and moved. It wasn't about burning calories. It wasn't about losing weight. It was about remembering I was still in here, still alive, still me. And week after week, something began to shift. Not drastically, not visually, but energy. My posture changed, my tone, my eyes. I started wearing real clothes again, not just sweats. I wore earrings. I bought new shampoo. I put lotion on my legs. It sounds small, I know, but to me, it felt like a revolution. And then, one morning, I caught him staring at me. I was vacuuming the living room in an old tee and yoga pants, humming under my breath. I looked up, and he was watching me. Michael. Not blankly, not annoyed. He was staring like he did years ago, when he first met me, when he couldn't keep his hands off me. He looked confused, as if something had returned and he didn't know when. That night, he touched me for the first time in months. Just a hand on my lower back in the hallway. Then a compliment over dinner. "You look different," he said. I shrugged. "I'm not." But that wasn't entirely true, because inside, everything had changed. Over the next 2 weeks, I started catching people staring. The grocery store clerk who suddenly remembered my name, the barista who gave me my drink for free, 2 dads at Emma's class who stood straighter when I walked past. My glow wasn't about weight loss. I hadn't really lost any weight, maybe toned up a little. It was presence. I carried myself like someone who belonged. And that terrified him. He started hovering. He'd offer to pick Emma up, ask what I was doing after ballet. He wrapped his arm around me during a walk and pulled me closer when a man looked our way. One night he actually initiated, touched my face gently, like he used to. And for a moment I almost let myself believe it. But then I remembered. I remembered every cruel word, every night he turned away. Every day I cried in the closet so Emma wouldn't hear. Every insult he let hang in the air without defense. The damage had been done. And something irreversible had shifted. I was no longer waiting to be loved. I had learned to love myself. And that changed everything. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was folding laundry when he walked in and said, "Hey, you want to go out for lunch today? Just us?" He hadn't asked me that in years, not without it being tied to a family event or some errand he wanted me to run. I looked up. His voice was softer, like the version of him I used to know was trying to peek through. "I thought we could go to that cafe near the lake," he added. "You love their soup, right?" I smiled politely. "You hate that place." He hesitated. "Well, I just thought we could spend time. It's been nice lately. You seem happy." He said it like a compliment, but it sounded more like confusion, like he couldn't quite figure out where the glow was coming from, or why he didn't control it. I folded the towel in my hand, then looked him right in the eyes. "I want a separation." He blinked, laughed once, awkwardly. "What?" "I'm not happy here, and I'm not in love with you anymore." The words landed hard, like bricks dropped in a silent room. He stared at me. "Is this about someone else?" "No." I shook my head. "It's about me, and everything you let happen." He went still. Then his voice dropped, defensive. "I know I haven't been perfect, but come on. We've been good lately." "No, you've been attentive lately. Because now that I'm not crumbling, you're suddenly interested." He started pacing. "You're really going to throw away our marriage over a rough patch?" I stood up slowly. It wasn't a rough patch. It was years of emotional abuse, of neglect, of being made to feel like a burden in my own home. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. "You watched your family mock me. You joined in. You let me cry myself to sleep beside you without asking why." His mouth opened, closed, nothing came out. "And now that I've started glowing again, now that other people notice me, you want credit for that? You want me to believe it was always here?" He sat down on the edge of the couch. "Can we at least try therapy?" "For Emma?" I looked down the hall where her ballet slippers were still drying by the vent. "That's exactly why I'm doing this," I said. "So she never learns to shrink herself for someone else's comfort, especially not a man." He didn't accept it. Not at first. He begged, pleaded, said things like, "You're beautiful. You've always been. Don't let a bad season destroy everything." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I was done wasting energy convincing someone I was worthy. I moved in with my friend Rachel for a few weeks while I sorted the lease on a small condo. Nothing fancy, but it had sunlight in the mornings and enough space for Emma to twirl in the hallway. The day I left, Michael stood in the driveway and said, "You're making a mistake." I loaded the last bag into the car and said, "No. I made that mistake when I stayed after the first time you called me lazy. This is the correction." He watched as I drove away, and I didn't cry, not once, because by then, I'd already let him go. Emma's routine didn't change. We continued her ballet classes. While Emma practiced with her class, I kept slipping into the smaller studio down the hall. The one with the lights always off, the floor always clean, and a single narrow window where the late sun poured through. I danced in there, quietly, alone, swaying to a rhythm that had nothing to do with calories or mirrors. I let the piano music leaking from the next room guide me. I felt feminine and alive. One Thursday evening, just before dusk, I was moving slowly, arms loose, hips grounded, breath deep. I hadn't even noticed that the curtain wasn't fully drawn across the window. Lost in the rhythm, I let my body sway with the piano music leaking through the walls. Just breath and sway, nothing forced, nothing posed. Then I looked up and saw him, Dylan, standing by his car across the lot, keys in hand, frozen. He was watching me, not judging, not mocking, just seeing. Our eyes met through the pale curtain, and for a moment, everything stopped. I felt caught, exposed, but something in his expression wasn't judgmental. It was respectful, appreciative. So I didn't stop. I kept moving, slowly, deliberately, as if I belonged in my own skin. He watched for another minute before finally getting in his car. She saw it too. His sister, Michael's sister, the one who lived in the gym like it was a dating pool, the one who'd been angling her body in unnatural ways any time Dylan would walk by. She'd followed him out, casually lingering by the gym entrance, waiting for eye contact, but his eyes were already caught by the woman she had dismissed, mocked, pinched at parties like loose flesh, and it burned her alive. I didn't know she'd seen Dylan stop to stare at me, but she had, and she waited. After Emma's class ended, we stepped outside into the golden air, and there she was, leaning against her car like she'd been rehearsing. "Well, well, well," she said, voice dripping with smugness. "Who do we have here?" I didn't stop walking. She followed, close, sharp. "You think you can dance away from reality forever?" she snapped. "Let's be real. Once rent's due, you'll come crawling back to Michael." I stayed silent. Emma held my hand, swinging her water bottle. She leaned in closer. "You're not a size 0, you've got mom hips." No man with options is looking for that. Then she smiled. "The cruel kind. The kind women are trained to deliver. I hope you enjoyed your little glow-up moment, but fairy tales don't last, sweetie." I paused then, looked her dead in the eye. "Some of us don't need fairy tales," I said. "We just needed to stop waiting for permission to feel alive." And I walked away. 2 weeks later, it happened. Same Thursday, same studio, same playlist floating from the next room. I moved slowly, barefoot, my body warm with presence. No posing, no perfection, just breathe. I didn't know he was watching again. But this time, he didn't stay by his car. When I stepped outside with Emma, he was waiting. He smiled when our eyes met. "Hey," he said gently. "Sorry if this is weird. I've seen you dance." I blinked. "From across the lot," he explained. "I wasn't trying to intrude, just noticed." He looked at Emma. "Hi, kiddo." Emma giggled, hiding behind my leg. "You have a calm way about you," he said. "Most people thrash around trying to prove something. You don't." He paused, glancing down at my left hand, noticing the absence of a ring. "I'm Dylan, by the way." "I know," I said, smiling. His eyes lit up. "If you're open to it, maybe sometime we could grab a coffee? Something easy. I'd love to hear more about your movement. It's rare." He pulled out his phone and offered it to me. I hesitated for a second. Not out of fear, but out of realization. This was the moment. The mirror image of every moment they thought I'd never have. I took the phone, typed in my number. From the corner of my eye, I caught her, Michael's sister, standing frozen outside the gym doors, jaw clenched, eyes burning. She raised her phone to her ear, and I didn't need to hear a word to know exactly who she was calling. 10 minutes later, a truck screeched into the lot. Michael. He pulled in hard, like a man ready to interrupt fate. He slammed the door, but didn't move. He just stood there, watching. Watching Dylan smile, watching him say something that made me laugh, watching me glow. Not because I lost weight, because I found myself. Dylan looked over his shoulder casually. "Friend of yours?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not anymore." He nodded. "Got it." He opened the car door for Emma, waited while I buckled her in, and Michael? He didn't speak. didn't shout, just stood there, small, shrinking. He watched the woman he used to pick apart, body, spirit, appetite, stand at ease beside a man who saw her without blinking. From the glass entrance of the CrossFit gym, his sister had seen it all. Saw Dylan lean in, hand on the top of my car, say, "I'll text you." Saw me smile, say, "I hope you do." Saw the moment she had spent a year chasing land gently in someone else's lap. And the woman who caught it? She never chased it. She just moved. Michael stayed frozen as I pulled out of the lot. I didn't wave, didn't brake, didn't look back, because I didn't need to. That moment was never about him. It was about every time he let someone laugh at me, and every time I laughed it off to survive. For years, I danced around other people's comfort. Now I dance for mine, not on stages, not for claps, but in empty rooms where the sun spills in and my daughter's laughter echoes down the hall. Emma asks if I used to be a ballerina. I tell her no, but I tell her I remembered how to love my body. That it bends and breathes and carries stories. She twirls beside me now, bare feet against the wood floor. No fear in her eyes, no hesitation in her hips. She watches the way I treat myself, and that means she'll never accept less, not from friends, not from love, not even from herself. As for Michael, he finally saw me, but it was too late. He saw me laugh freely at something Dylan whispered, saw me touch Emma's hair with light in my eyes, saw the peace on my face when I thought no one was watching. And he realized in that terrible quiet way that I hadn't stopped loving. I had just stopped loving him. That realization gutted him, because for the first time, he understood what he'd thrown away. Not a body, not a version of me that once fit his image, but a woman who would have given him everything if he had only treated her like she was enough. Now he watches from a distance, not with anger, with regret so loud it follows him into every room. And his sister? She still doesn't understand. How someone like me, soft-spoken, curvy, invisible in her world, could win over a man like Dylan. She still thinks it was about looks. Still thinks attention is something you earn by shrinking. But Dylan wasn't drawn to me because I demanded space. He was drawn to me because I already had it. Because I moved like someone who wasn't waiting for approval. And that confused her. Because it meant that everything she'd ever chased wasn't what made her worthy. I didn't need to lose the weight. I needed to lose the shame, the silence, the smallness. And when I let that go, everything else came back to me. My voice, my glow, my reflection. They weren't gifts. They were mine all along. I just stopped asking for permission to keep them. And yes, it hurts sometimes. To walk away from someone you once dreamed of growing old with. To know they only reached for you again once you no longer needed them. But I remind myself, letting go is not the same as losing. Sometimes letting go is the win, because the most beautiful thing I've ever done was choose myself and mean it.